So, hi everyone, welcome to the Small Talk. Today we have the opportunity to be interviewing Danny from the Moon. So, Danny, could you just go over what you do and what we'll be talking about today, if possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, guys, thank you so much for having me here. Absolute pleasure. I've done this once in the German one already, and that was really cool. So, very glad to be part of this one and be amongst you guys. I am the product manager for the CHSB Squad. As you may or may not know, we've done a fair bit amount of restructuring internally at Swissbook, and we now work in smaller independent teams that who all carry part of the vision that we collectively share. My squad is called the CHSB Squad. The name's slightly misleading because we don't only do CHSB, we do work in terms of CHSB Utilities, and we have an investment team that has a look at market making and liquidity provision for those markets. But beyond that, what we really do, the vision is how we can interact with the community, how we can interact with you guys. And we really want our long-term vision is to be able to create a user ecosystem within the Swissbook app that really showcases who you are in the ecosystem and what the ecosystem is for you. What we're about is this slightly deeper emotional connection that we can create with our community members, which is super, super important. We're talking about fundamentals. That's really what we're after. We're here to support those teams that work on thematics, those teams that work on passive income, and we do the fundamental work behind so that when they launch, we have a coherent space within the app that makes sense and that differentiates us from all the others out there. One of the things that I would like to go back is when I look at applications out there without necessarily naming them, but you all know who they are. They often feel fake, very clinical. They're clean and they're nice, but I go there, I make or I lose money and I leave. Where I think the key difference with Swissbook is exactly what we're doing right now. Is this deeper sense of community we have, and a true sense of love that we all share and that we're part of something. I think that's super beautiful, and we try to put this into a product. It's easier said than done, but we've got an incredibly talented team, and I'm just a lucky guy who's able to work with them on a daily basis.
Concerning Protect and Choose, in the same blog article, it's mentioned that the buyback will happen in Q2, but it's also mentioned that it would happen in optimal market conditions. Which one is the priority? What happens if the described optimal conditions do not arrive in Q2? Could the buyback be postponed? Do you know?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, the buyback in itself, that release was, when we don't do things optimally, we need to admit to them as well. The buyback was not communicated optimally. The whole Protect and Choose initiative. It's a really cool initiative if you look at the fundamentals what it can achieve. But the most important thing with the Protect and Choose is indeed to do it at the right time. The aim is to have this on a quarterly basis. But what we must understand is that let's just right now we've got about I think 3 mil in worth of buyback pool. If we were to do that right now, the impact would be quasi nil. Like there would be a pump, don't get me wrong, but that would be short lived as there's too much selling pressure overall because of general bigger market sentiment. We cannot fight against macro sentiments and macro plays in the markets with 3 mil in a buyback pool. The buyback pool needs to be used very strategically when markets are looking favorable and we are close to key resistances, having tested those resistances perhaps a few times, and then we jump in with a buyback. And then all of a sudden you've got momentum going, you get FOMO coming in, new people buying in, and then before you know it, you've got a snowball effect going on. And we've got a whole team of incredibly smart people that look at this from a quantitative matter, from an analytical manner, price action, technical analysis. And, it's a key priority. It's not a small thing for us. So we really want to make sure that we use it accurately and in the most strategic way possible so that it benefits all of the holders, all of you guys.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Danny. There's another question here, which I'm not sure makes sense. Is it the intention to gradually phase out the Genesis premium and nudge the current users towards new premiums?
Yeah, no, that's a super interesting question. Because and actually very well timed because part of the reason I'm here, guys, is also because yesterday we introduced the 2x, and that created a bit of uncertainty among people, doubts, and I really understand that mostly among Genesis people because right now Generation has the same yield as the Genesis people, and I fully understand it. So I'm here to also address that and to speak this through. And if there's doubts, keep at me, and I'm here to answer as much as I can. Regarding that specific question. The idea is not to phase out Genesis. Genesis right now still have the best benefits out there. The greatest advantage is Genesis is the only tier that allows you to scalp trade on Swissbook if you really wanted to, which is Swissbook is not made for that, but you really can on stable coins, on Bitcoin, with the 0% transaction fees. The thing we need to keep in mind is that we don't do 2x to phase out Genesis on generation. Sorry, we do 2x on generation because it is actually vital for us to be able to have new users get the yield we can offer, and that's the 2x. So if we want, and this is something that's beneficial for everybody in the long term, and I understand at the moment there's a bit of FUD going on because it's very raw still, but you will see that more things are coming for all tiers, and this is just the beginning of a wider restructuring we have in mind, because at the moment there's a lot of issues with our premiums, and we're looking at this every single day. So can I repeat quickly the question, because I'm getting out of line here and I don't want to...
No, it's no problem. Is it the intention to gradually phase out the Genesis premium and nudge the current users towards new premiums?
Yes, thank you. That the second part of the question is the one I wanted to get to now. Yep. And it's that one of the issues we're seeing with the premiums is that it's really about product market fit. If you look at any user base, and we've got a great user base, we've got more than 600,000 people part of this amazing journey that we're on. And as you can imagine, these people are incredibly diverse in all kind of metrics, where they live, how much they have, who they are. And right now we're trying to squeeze all of them in two available tiers, and the Genesis one is closed. So there's a big issue in terms of product market fit at Genesis. For some people, Genesis is just too expensive. 50,000 CHSb is a hell of money. And to be honest with you guys, I have to stretch out a lot to get to 50,000 CHSb. It's really not an easy thing to get to. And so we are now giving also for these Genesis members the opportunity to go back down, don't miss out on any extra yield, but be able to yield on 30,000 more CHSb that they weren't able to do before. I'm not saying that everybody should do this, but for some people, it definitely does make sense. And our idea is now to make the choice easier and to just allow everybody to feel comfortable in the tier that they feel comfortable in. The big fortunes that are high net worth individuals, they probably won't do that because it doesn't make sense for them. But the lower AUMs, so assets under management, in Genesis, for them, it probably makes quite a lot of sense, especially if you're not a big trader. Our goal is to really find the best fit for you, make you feel in this ecosystem. And as I said, this 2x is just the first thing that of a long series of really cool and exciting features that are going to come out on the premiums. So all I can say to you guys is to stay tuned, because it's really going to be a cool ride, and we're going to make this absolutely awesome, the premiums, and I think everybody's going to end up winning. That's the idea.
So if I could go back on one part of what you explained in your question and just try and imagine that right now I'm a Genesis premium user, I've got my 50,000 tokens locked, and I only have 1,000 CHSb that are out, and that's all I have in the app. I have 51,000 CHSb and the Genesis. Now I'm able to go back to the Generation Premium and it makes sense, but should I be afraid that I'd be missing out on anything if I do so?
It is definitely a really good question, Ben. If you have 51,000 CHSb total assets under management, I'd recommend you probably go down, because it makes much more sense to become a generation. Now,
yeah, it's an extreme, but yeah.
That is an extreme example. Like if you're only yielding on 1,000 CHSb and you have 50,000 in total, dude, go down to community. You'll be better off.
No generation. But, or maybe.
Yes, it depends actually. It depends on your profile. We're not trying to force anybody to go on a tier that's above them. We're trying to find the best product market fit, because at the end of the day, at the long term, this is how we're going to create a healthy ecosystem. One thing that's really cool about our Swissbook is that we're transparent in what we're trying to do, and we're transparent about what we want to achieve for our users. And unlike other platforms that try to squeeze their users in so anyway, we really don't want to do that, and we've never gone in this direction, and we're not doing it right now. So that's why we're being super transparent and be like, hey guys, for some of you, it actually makes sense to downgrade. For some of you, it doesn't, because more things are to come indeed. And that's to answer your question, Ben. We've hinted towards it in the email you may have all received if you're Genesis. And this is going to, there's big changes that have to happen to the business model as well. And it's going to often have to do with the combination of how much CHSb you hold in total and your premium tier. Meaning that if a generation and a Genesis both have the same amount of CHSb total, the Genesis will probably be better off, or he or she will be better off than the generation. So we're still prioritizing Genesis in this way. And this will apply to total yields later on when the business model changes will occur, which I can't speak too much about right now, but it will be beneficial for everybody because it's a much better system. It will apply to thematics. It will apply to the NFTs we're bringing out. It will apply to.
Hey, Danny, people are asking if you can speak a little slower because not everyone's a English first language speaker.
Oh
So
my,
if you could just,
so
no,
sorry,
that's
guys.
okay. Love the passion and energy, but if you could just slow down, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. I do apologize, guys. I tend to speak very quickly anyway. So if you don't stop me, I just go on, and I speak too quickly. So no, thank you for pointing that out, Jamie. What I'm saying is that there will be benefits for Genesis down the line. There will be benefits for all the tiers. And being Genesis, if you can afford it and if you feel right, it's always going to be better, 100%. And we're always going to prioritize the role of a Genesis over the role of a generation. But we also need to have the bigger scope in mind of what we need to grow the business. And we can't compromise future growth and reaching 1 million users if we don't give a maximal yield. So that was the decision behind 2x. And, we've done an incredible amount of simulation behind to see what the impact would be on the price, what the impact would be on total premium numbers. And we've seen it right now already. Like the numbers are really positive even after a day. And it's something that will end up, it will be beneficial for all of us if you believe in the long-term vision of Swissbook, which if you're here, I assume you do. And we really want to make sure that we hear you out and continue to go in this direction. So I know I've spoken a lot about this question. Hope you got something of it, and I apologize if I spoke too quickly, but please feel free to ask me again if there's something you didn't understand.
It's fine. It's fine. We missed it all. Can you repeat that? Just kidding. I'm kidding. So there is another question. Sorry, Jamie, I missed your question. She's asking, what's the vision for mirroring the community experience in the app?
Wow, that's a very profound question because that's something that looks down our roadmap a few months ahead. That's a really big endeavor because all I can say is that we are going to create a space for you in the app that is going to feel like home. That's really the idea, and that's how much I can say. And it will be a dashboard for you. It will be a way for you to see who you are in the app and what the app does for you. And that's going to be super, super exciting. Because the amount of things we can include in that are really far-reaching, and I'm afraid I can't speak too tangibly about them right now because they're still far away. They're still subject to changes in the technicalities, and I'll be making potentially empty promises. So I don't want to go that road, but I can say that much: that this space is going to be really cool for all the users, and the idea is really to make it feel like home, and we keep building on the sense of community that we have, and that's going to be it's a cornerstone of Swissbook. It's what makes us different in so many ways. And it will feature all of the core values, the fundamental emotional values that we all believe in. This fun, fair, community-centric approach of doing things is going to be represented in this space, and that's really what we're working at. And they're going to be it's going to have to do with rewards. It's going to have to do with I'm getting into. I can't say too much, but stay tuned, guys, because 2022 is going to be a bloody exciting year for everybody. I can promise you that much.
Cool. Hope so, because market's boring.
Yeah, the market's very boring right now. It's true. It's true.
So yeah, if we can have some stuff on the side which is exciting, that could be nice.
Yeah.
What we got here?
Very exciting.
Andreas is asking, I understand that lately the change of the community index was needed due to Crypto Challenge end. But wouldn't it be nice to have a referendum on the new components? In my opinion, referrals might be a difficult score in the current market.
Yeah, it's a valid question. And, the idea of referendums, it's a while since we had one. Referendums are going to also be a part of what I just described earlier. And we really want to go back down this road and, being true to our Swiss core values. Referendums are very much along there. We've decided to go down the road of what we have right now with the new community index because it allows us to really represent greatly what the health of the ecosystem is, and just referrals acquisition is a big part of it. So the idea is also that the referendum, it's a tough question because you need to accurately represent the health of the ecosystem whilst also creating a positive momentum for everybody. What we can't do is create if we really wanted to, we created a community index that has a score of 10 every week and then everybody's happy, but that's not the point of it either. When things go bad, it also needs to be represented in a community index. That's what keeps us honest. That's what keeps us accountable. And it's hard to say invitations, we can't do them because they're hard. they're key vital components of what the community index is, of what the health of the ecosystem is, which is new users joining the app, which, as you can imagine, is paramount. So just saying we can't do them because they're hard is, I'm not sure if that's the honest approach we want to take. So what we are going to do, though, is make referrals easier, make referrals more fun, make it more engaging and more rewarding for everyone. That's one thing that I can tell you is definitely going to happen. And that's also part of the narrative that I was telling you before. And that's going to have a big impact. So that's the way we want to tackle these issues. How can we make the current metrics that are relevant more easy and better executable for our users, for our core members, which you are, you guys are the heart, you're the lungs of this ecosystem. So how can we make your life easier and spread the love? So that's how we're going to tackle that.
One thing that I'd ask, this is something for me personally, while you're going through this entire journey, this process, kind of, adjusting things, changing things, trying to find a balance between everything. Do you ever feel, or have you ever felt, in the entire sort of Swissborg ecosystem, that too much is too much, if that makes sense? To kind of just have, because I'll say it like this: let's say there's 100,000 people that you're trying to tailor to, and we know obviously that's very, very difficult. Do you think that eventually there will be a point where Swissborg gets to that is just, a nice suite of services, not overcomplicated, nice and easy to use, and just works?
As opposed to what?
As opposed to too much. So, for example, let's say you've got your premiums, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of mess around with the premiums, try and find a nice balance, and then maybe in another 6 months' time, you have to do that again, and then maybe in another 6 months' time, you have to add another premium or maybe change a different one. And my question really, I guess, is: do you think changing things consistently too much may have the opposite effect?
Yeah, no, I get your question. It's a very relevant question, very good question. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, if there would be incoherent changes all over again and all over again, yes, it would be a nightmare for everybody, because everybody would get lost in the constant changes. I think the way we approach changes is a gradual road that we go down. We have a final vision ahead of us that we know would be amazing for you guys, and that would create, compared to what's out there in the market, by far the best experience out there. One of the cool things we have at Swissborg, and that we always keep in mind, is how simple our UX is. I think no one could argue against that. Our UX is beautifully simple and engaging, and everybody can feel at home quite quickly. Even I onboarded my grandma like 3 weeks ago, and trust me, she's not tech savvy at all, but she really grasped what Swissborg is about rather quickly. So that's anywhere at core. When we talk about changes, and it's not necessarily, I think the nuance to take is that we're not messing about. The nuance is to take is that these changes all follow a logical thread that will make sense progressively as they go on. They're not going to feel like, oh, but they changed this 2 weeks ago, why are they doing this now? They're going to be like, oh, right, that's the next chapter of Swissborg, and I'm following this story. So to answer your question, absolutely, like these kind of changes would not be beneficial at all, and that's not what we're trying to do. So that's why we're taking this really high-level approach, looking down the road, and how we can make the minimum changes necessary, and when those changes occur, that they feel natural and they feel engaging to everybody, and it doesn't make sense to you guys straight away. We actually had a chat with Jamie about this like 3 hours ago, about a topic that you guys are going to see very soon. And one of the approaches we've taken back is, okay, no, actually, we're maybe going down too far the road too quickly. Let's make something that feels at home quicker. So yeah, I hope that answers your question to some extent. I'm afraid I can't go more into detail.
No, it does. Thank you, Danny. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Cheers.
Cool. I'll go and redirect us a little bit into CHSB, because we had a couple of questions regarding CHSB, more specifically the price. Now, one of our users is afraid that perhaps downgrading from Genesis Premium to Generation Premium would cause a negative effect or a selling pressure because of the 30K that each of these people would be able to do whatever they want with. So, have you guys studied that? What are the expectations, and are you afraid of a potential selling pressure led by that downgrade?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastically accurate question. As you can imagine, or I hope you can imagine, we started this endeavor by asking that question first. So we have an incredible team of quants, so quantitative analysts for you guys, who I spend about 3 weeks time of doing all kinds of simulation and different analysis, technical analysis, to see what the potential impacts could be, from the most positive one to the most pessimistic one. And we find out that in any way we're going to have a delta positive approach to this. So what needs to be understood is that obviously the downgrades could potentially create more circulating supply, which it will, but you also need to understand the upgrades, which is the other side of it, right? So it's always a combination of both. And once we've done with this premium restructuring, we estimate there will be about 2 to 3 million more CHSB stake than there were before. So 2 to 3 million CHSB stake less in circulating supply as there is right now today. And this is within a very short period of time. So down the line, this number will only increase. It's a net delta positive result in any case for that case. And we would have never engaged in this kind of development and changes if it would impact negatively the price. Obviously, that's something that we always keep in the for mind. And all the decisions are not necessarily based primarily around that, but certainly take into account at any given point. And if the result's negative, then we're going to change it until we find the result we want. That's why we iterate and we change it. And internally, we have lots of discussions. But in this case, I can confidently say that everybody will be better off once these changes occur. And in fact, today already there's more CHSB stake than there was yesterday.
Cool. Oh, that's cool to know.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's very what's the word?
Surprising.
Comforting. Yep. No, it's comforting to know.
Comforting. Yeah. And yeah, I was going to say, I'm guessing also as the app is becoming more tailored to every type of profile, definitely I think it's also something that might encourage people to go for one of the premiums and the ones that's best suited for them, and that would probably also lead in the long run into more stake tokens that we have right now. Because I think either you mentioned yesterday or a few days ago, the difference between the community premium and generation price is relatively big. Yeah, it's 10x, which is it's a considerable amount for some people, definitely.
Always, as the question was said earlier, is too much. That's very accurate as well. So it's as in life, life is never black or white. It's always some shade of gray in the middle. And in everything you do in product as well, it's all about finding the right balance. And often those small differences can make or break an initiative. And so we are being very careful. We're being very conscious of those things, and really try to find the best approach for everybody, so that we strike the right balance.
Nice.
Fantastic. So who we got here now? Mr. Urban Penguin. The premiums themselves, have you guys thought about changing the premium, so instead of having CHSB tokens, staked and so on, to just have a monthly or an annual subscription to be part of X premiums, and then that fiat being used, to buy and burn those tokens?
Yeah. Also, these questions are great, guys. They're very relevant questions, well thought through. So this is what we would consider premium remodeling. Right now, what we're engaging is a premium restructuring, and there's a key difference to note. So the premium restructuring will now be focused on the same business model we have right now. What we're trying to achieve with that premium restructuring is to then. So right now, our premiums are not full, as Benny just mentioned, 10x from one to the other. We're missing out on huge cohorts of user bases that are not spoken to with either one of those premiums. So right now, we're trying to complete this premium picture, and as I said, find this right balance that we'll be able to achieve this. And with that, we will be able to gather empiric data that will tell us what works, what doesn't work. As you know out there, there's many different loyalty programs out there for different platforms. Some of them are part of your the proportion of your portfolio needs to be in the native token. Some of them are subscription models, as was mentioned. And there's many, many different ways that we can do it. There's also a few ways that we think could be really cool that no one has done so far. But again, to come back to the thing that I said previously, we need to make sure that if we do it, we don't do it blindly, and that we have enough confidence that this is the right decision to do. And for that, you could say like, oh, let the people vote. But it's not quite that easy, because there's so many things that need to be taken into account beyond what users think might be good or not, that we need to analyze. So this is the first idea now of this premium restructuring, of being able to analyze empiric data, of see what works, what doesn't work. And then through that, we will indeed consider whether a remodeling down the future is something that we could do, such as, for instance, the subscription model, or something else. It will not happen straight away. I can promise you that much. Relax on your premiums, enjoy the ride that's going to happen right now. And then we will make sure to have a very thorough look at this and see if it actually makes sense or not. That's just today.
So going on from another question, actually, from the 30k being sort of unlocked and everything, that Ben was asking earlier.
Yep.
The 30k CHSP, basically, if they unlock the 30 CHSP price, okay, yeah. So will unlocking those 30 CHSP tokens to sort of drop down to generation and lower the yield on CHSB?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, you can yield them, of course. Yeah.
No. Will it actually lower the yield, the actual amount of yield? Yeah.
No. So again, we've run simulations on that, and it won't, because the yield budget is calculated based on we take a percentage of the revenues, and that allocates for the yield budget. So because this leads to more acquisition of premiums, this offsets any potential extra dilution from the 30,000 CHSB. How many we've got different models to accommodate all kind of scenarios. And in any case, the future acquisition and growth of the premiums heavily offsets that. So the idea is in that I can't promise this will be optimistic, but that the yields could potentially even increase down the line. Not straight away, but it is that direction that we need to go. And that's the key difference to note between giving more yield to Genesis, which is also point out then, I might as well say, because I'm sure this question will arrive at one point, that's completely different because that's a closed tier. So this doesn't lead to any more acquisition, and giving more yield to Genesis, like making it 2.2%, that's first of all above what we can actually give you. So it comes straight out of our treasury, we paying for it. It will dilute the yield because it doesn't lead to any extra fees generated. It doesn't lead to any more revenue that can buy back CHSB to put back into the budget. It's all kind of a round economy that's very tailored and makes a lot of sense if done correctly, but it needs to be done correctly.
Yeah.
So that's a key difference to note. I hope that explains it.
Thank you.
While we're still on the subject for premiums and the sort of questions that you answered before, with LSP, I remember a few weeks ago we did a video where we were comparing a lot of different exchanges and the prices that some of them were offering on different services. And in that comparison, we also looked a lot at the premiums and at the fees. And I think it's very interesting how some companies, as you mentioned, base the premium on a percentage of your portfolio. Some others will just give the same status to everyone and take a fee for every day that their crypto is on the app, and some of them just charge spread that's extremely high. So that premium model in CHSB has been set by Swissborg a long time ago, and hasn't really changed since. It's always been locking CHSB for a year, and then as long as you keep it, you get the premium benefits. How was that set compared to the others? Why is this any different than what the others are doing? Why was this deemed more impactful than a percentage of the portfolio, for example?
It really depends what kind of business model you want to create. This was done far before my time at Swissborg, I'm afraid. This was done by Anthony, by Cyrus in the very early days. But what I can say about it is that it's a very fair way of doing it. It's a very transparent way, a very beneficial way for the user, because you get one subscription, which is it's essentially just a pledge of loyalty that you give Swissborg, saying, I trust you guys. Here's one year lock, but then we never ask you to pay again. And then you benefit from the status for there forever after. Other models, it depends what so it's mostly lending platforms that do this percentage based on portfolio, and it makes some sense to them. I'm not sure if it would make sense for us. It's just depending on the business model you have. It really depends on the intricacies, how every company makes money, and obviously these guys make money differently than we do. But yeah, again, by not taking any spread, that's the one that really gets me going as well, because the spread is a fallacy. Because most people won't even realize you're taking a spread. Like if you look at the Voyager model, I don't know if you guys know what Voyager Invest is. They claim really low fees, but what you don't know is that there's a massive spread behind. And because it's not quite as transparent as Swissborg, and we're not telling you what's actually going on, they're essentially taking their clients for fools to some degree, and just lying straight to the face and make, oh my god, you get so low fees, and in the back you get the most incredible spread that sets you back the same amount that you would on fees or more. So with Genesis, the model was based on Genesis. We're allowing you to actually get the absolute best price on the market, better than you have on the market because of the incredibly technology behind the smart engine. So if you Genesis, there's literally no better platform out there to buy Bitcoin, to buy your stable coins at a better price. There just isn't. And that's the beauty of what we do and the transparency. And I think that speaks a lot to the ethos, to just the way we think at Swissbook, and again, what makes us different compared to other people out there.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it really boils down to just some people will jump into cryptocurrency without any thought, without any thinking or education, or going and looking and reading, which is easily done. When you go to an exchange or you're looking to kind of get involved, it's so easy to start an account, send your money, and get going. That you kind of bypass that stage where you look, you read, read the fine print. Me and Ben actually tried to really emphasize this when we did a video recently going through all of the fees and on different exchanges. So let's move forward a little bit and talk about NFTs. Ken's asking, will our connected NFTs have anything, or will they play anything in the future? So I think what Ken's talking about here in terms of AMA NFTs, some of the Sunni NFTs and so on. Will they have any role with Swissborg in the future in terms of benefits?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to be vague about this one, because the truth is we are looking at this right now about how we can incorporate NFTs into the app. I think there's a clear willingness from everybody in the team to go into this direction, because it is a big part of DeFi today and Web3 in general. So NFTs will play a part for sure. I'm afraid I cannot say today what part exactly they will play, because I'll be reaching too far. But it will come without a single hint of a doubt. The NFTs are getting an ever more important place. NFTs are tricky as well, though. You really need to make your own research on NFTs. I think they're even more riskier on the whole as crypto assets themselves. But the ones that are valuable are incredible. And there's a new initiative. I don't know if you guys saw that already. The Seaborgs that kind of come out. There's a Twitter account that's been created. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend following it. It's going to be really exciting, and that's going to be new. That's going to be a first properly minted Swissborg NFTs, and they're going to be really, really exciting. We're crafting them right now. They're curated by actual artists, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So if you haven't followed them, Seaborgs on Twitter, exciting things to come there as well. So that's just to show the avidity we have to go into the NFT direction.
Thank you.
We had a couple of questions that were talking about the potential utilities that could be added to CHSB. Like, for example, in the keynote, there was that sort of dreamy board with then surprise new utility, and others that could come up also in the next, let's say, weeks, months, years to come. Can you talk about anything that would, let's say, boost CHSB's demand other than the premium tiers?
Yeah, that's a huge topic. CHSB Utilities is something we concern ourselves most days of the week with, and we really want to create something really cool. Like, tokenomics is everything if you invest in a cryptocurrency. In fact, I'd say that if you invest in a cryptocurrency and you haven't read the tokenomics paper, you're taking a blind gamble, because you don't know if there's going to be if they're inflationary, they're deflationary, you don't know how they're distributed, etc., etc. So the third thing is that CHSB, the tokenomics are absolutely solid. They're great. So that's a really good first thing going for us. In terms of future utilities, there's many different ways we're going about. I don't want to make the same mistakes that were done in the past, where promises were made and then it's really hard to keep them, because things change, market conditions change, partnerships change. But there is definitely a lot of ways to create those new utilities with CHSB. Some of them have to do with premiums, some have nothing to do with premiums. But when we look at utilities, we look at this tokenomics and how we can improve those tokenomics, how we can improve the flows of tokenomics. And protect and choose, protect and burn is one great way. And so there's many different ways of how you can implement the protect and burn pool. As was mentioned earlier, with one of the business model changes, there's really so many ways. Some may seem obvious, like doing partnership with other people, which we also are looking into. And I can't announce anything today, but I can promise that there's extensive work going on that side, as well as as I said, just different business models that can accommodate more protect and burn and create a deflationary, likely deflationary protocol through that. I'm going to have to stay vague on that one as well, just to not commit same mistakes as before. But it's something that we are heavily concerned on, and it's top priority for us. So rest assured, the best people on the team are on it.
I'm trying to understand Revax's question here, because this is going again to utility and kind of NFT together. He said, why launch a new NFT with more utility, but doesn't launch before utility for the NFT already pushed on Engine in the past? I think what he's saying here is effectively, why launch more NFTs and maybe perhaps have utilities with those NFTs, or basically having those NFTs paired with utilities, and not do anything with what was sort of previously minted in terms of the AMA NFTs and things on Engine. And then there's some more that he talks about the Hero Score project and ideas to utility, wait for it future. But I think the general question is very simple.
Yeah.
Why mint more NFTs with utilities, right, and do nothing with what was already done on Engine?
It's an excellent question. I think why you mint new NFTs, because these are generally different to what anything that was minted on Engine before, and they relate to this new thematic, and that's going to be very exciting. Why not do anything with ones that were previously minted? It's also an excellent question. When you talk about, I'm assuming you guys are talking about the giveaway NFTs, right? That happen.
Yeah. And I think as well, before you carry on, Danny, I think a lot of this plays into depending on what type of NFT you're minting, will depend on whether or not that will have any utility in the future, as in physical utility, other than just, well, you've got the NFT, so we'll give you this, in return.
Yeah.
Some NFTs, if my understanding is correct, can actually be created as a sort of mini smart contract with time locks and things like this, which is a completely different type of NFT. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. If you guys know about ERC 721 and ERC 721A, the new protocols that just came out that lowers gas fees on Ethereum, there's actually quite a lot of functionalities you can put into those smart contracts. To answer the question, is one thing that also needs to be realistically assumed is that NFTs have no scarcity at all. Like, the potential of creating NFTs is infinite.
Yeah.
So I also want to manage expectations, perhaps, because I think it's important sometimes that when you get free giveaway NFTs, can't expect the moon with those. They're free giveaway NFTs. They're nice things to have. It's your NFT, and no one can take that away from you. But you will get incredible perks from those free giveaway NFTs. It's probably not the best way to think about them, because you risk to disappoint yourself a bit too often. They're really cool, engaging things, those free NFTs, and I have a few, and I look at them around then, and it's cool for a gift, that kind of thing. But there's a key difference whether those NFTs were minted as a giveaway, or those NFTs that have a true minting protocol on OpenSea or whatever it might be, and there's an actual vision behind them. So that's why I'm saying, do your own research all the time, but do your own research on NFTs, especially if you're buying them, even more so, because the amount of scams out there with NFTs is incredible. Not saying that Swissbook obviously is any of those, but when we give free away NFTs, they're free giveaways, guys. So just manage expectations of those.
Yep. Thank you.
Now I'm trying to wait for the response of the people saying, are they happy to have a nice, cash and transparent answer regarding this, or aren't they happy about the answer? It's like I'm keeping an eye out. Yeah, for sure.
It's a balance. It's a balance.
Yeah.
No, but
I can sugarcoat it, but it is what it is at one point. And so I think you guys, if I'm here, you want some honest answers from me. So I try to give those.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important. You actually said something very interesting and very, very true. Manage expectations. Ultimately, I think that's something that needs to be reiterated, from time to time, just so people understand. Yep, they were free NFTs. It's a giveaway, but there's a lot of thought and time and effort going into these new ones type of thing.
Absolutely.
So if we just come back to CHSB, our beautiful green token. Could CHS be a governance token with an app governance multiplied by premium level multiplier? Ken, that is a very interesting question.
One more time.
So could the CHSB token be a governance token with an app governance multiplied by premium level multiplier? So I think what Ken's saying there is, can or will there be a time where CHSB is used as a governance token in a governance app, and then depending on what premium level you are, you get an X multiplier on your votes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I like that. Okay, not but I can tell you it won't be a governance token story, but having governance utilities is definitely part of it. It's hard to say to what extent it is a part of it, but it's certainly a part of it. How are we going to structure CHSB in the long term is, again, all to do with improving tokenomics and making it more and more valuable throughout time so that everybody ends up winning. But the governance side is critical. For you guys who may not know this, before I joined Swissborg, I worked at a central bank in Frankfurt. And if you guys know what CBDCs are, they're central bank digital currencies. And so I didn't necessarily work for the bank, but I worked with them. We had our own protocol and we tried to pitch them to them. And the protocol was focused on privacy, was focused on self-custodianship. It was very much a Web3 approach to CBDCs, which I thought if they're going to do CBDCs, that's the way it needs to be, because anything else is going to be an atrocity for human rights. And we ended up talking about governance for 6 months. And that's the reason I quit, because their governance approach was that the bank should keep all the control, and that would come at the expense of the user and of the in this case, the citizens of any country. So having good governance, that's my point about this, is vital as well. And, the referendums are part of it. And so we're definitely going to look into governance to some extent, but it's all a question of the roadmap as well and trying to fit this in. So the short answer is not straight away, but to some extent in the future for sure. I'm not sure if it's going to be a separate app. That's you're asking me to leap to an extent I can't leap right now, but governance will be included in some way for sure. Yeah.
Understood. And staying with the CHSB token, would it be possible one day to burn some CHSB on every transaction like BNB? So effectively, like a mini burn, an automatic burn.
Yeah, there's actually really cool things we can do with transactions CHSB. There's a thing like converting CHSB to dust. There's using CHSB for transactions, even having potential low transaction fees is use CHSB for transactions. So those are all things that we're looking at. I say those things openly to you guys. Again, not an expectation. I'm not saying that these was going to happen, but these are things we are actively looking at. And the decision upon which if they're going to happen or not, will depend on whether this is actually something good for the community and if it's something good for token economics. Burning CHSB might seem like it's indeed a good thing for token economics. And, if it does make sense, we might go down that road. It's a thing we're exploring in a slightly different angle, but not too far off that. So again, I can't give you a straight away answer. These things you're asking me things about the roadmap down the line. And again, I don't want to say yes and then it doesn't happen, but is this something we are looking at? That's for sure that I can say.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. As a little break so that you guys can take a breather before we go through the next questions, I can proudly say that Urban Penguin was the first winner of the sneaky giveaway that I did while you were answering the question, and I'll be throwing another giveaway now for the people that didn't have the chance to participate in the first one. So if you want to participate to the giveaway, it's super easy. Do you see the message in the channel SB Coffee text? You can press on the little party popper and that will automatically enter you into a draw to get 20 CHSB. If you are selected by the bot at the end of the countdown, you have the extreme privilege of getting 20 CHSB at the end of this smart talk-ish.
Maybe CHSB will be worth $40 one day.
Hey,
That's
and
what
if CHSB is worth $40, this is literally an $800 giveaway, so do not miss it. Even if you're eating, cooking, washing up, you pause, take the towel, dry your hands, and click.
I mean, look, if you're gonna say it like that, I'm gonna enter as well.
Yeah, go for it. And if you win 100 of those, you get yourself a free community premium. There you go. That's how you sell it. And now for a less fun question for you. Well, back to the serious stuff. Concerning managing expectations when thematics, and more seriously, CHSB and thematics, will it be included in every thematic or in just some? How big will be the percentage? How are you guys going to dose it so that it's not overwhelming for people, so that they don't feel forced into getting CHSB with every thematics that they own?
Yeah. Oh, you're asking me nitty-gritty questions here. I'll try and be as precise as I am able to be today. The short answer is CHSB will be in thematics. It will not be in every thematics. So that, because it doesn't necessarily make sense. Thematics per definition are based on precise themes. It doesn't make sense, and I'm not saying this is the thematic that's gonna happen. I'm just saying hypothetical thematic. It doesn't make sense for CHSb in a metaverse thematic, for instance, right? That's just obvious. So CHSb will be there in the thematics that it does make sense to be in, and the weight of CHSb in the thematics will be proportional to the liquidity that we can afford to weight at. Meaning that, if as soon as a thematic that's going to be BTC, Ethereum, and CHSb, not saying that this is happening either, I'm just putting a very obvious example out there, then we can't make 30-30-30 weight, because price fluctuations on CHSb, which has a much lower liquidity than Ethereum and Bitcoin, would completely throw off the mechanism. So it needs to be proportionally adjusted, the weight, to what each coin can provide in each thematic. So CHSb might have lower weights. I can't tell you exactly what percentage, because that depends on each thematics. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but it might not, it may or may not be in the first thematic, and we may have already determined the weights of it in the first thematics. But it's proportionate to what each coin can provide. And again, there's mathematical calculations that are made behind, so that the thematic is stable, and then we can recalibrate and reweigh the thematics accordingly when we need to, and that doesn't screw around with the other weights. That's as high level answer as I can give, whilst being nitty-gritty on a few stuff. So I hope that gave you a few answers already.
In terms of the entire premiums that are available, based on circulating supply, how many for each of the categories? So, for example, generation and community premium, are available based on the circulating supply. So, how many more people can still get any of these two premiums?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but you just have to divide amount of tokens required by circulating supply, so the other way around, by tokens required, make the aggregate sum of those two, and then you have the number. Although it's not quite that simple, because market fluctuations change, and the circulating supply changes all the time, although we're really good at keeping it quite steady. But especially in moments of extreme volatility, that market supply will change. So
he did follow up saying, is between the two of them. Obviously, in terms, and this is a difficult question to answer, I get this, but between sort of generation and community premium, which one do you think would be the most, not necessarily the most desirable, which is how Ken asked it, but I guess the better question would be, of those two, the consumer base that you have, in terms of people that are already engaged with the Wealth app, are you finding more people going towards community premium, or more people going towards sort of generation premium now that it's available? I know it's not been long, but still.
Yeah, I think that's with a bit of rationale, you can answer for that yourself. What do you think? And I'll tell you what the answer is, but I think it's quite an evident question.
I think if people had, here's where it's interesting. I think if people had the money, congratulations, Nuno, by the way. I think if people had the money, they'd go for generation. I think community premium is probably more popular, purely based on the fact that most people have that amount of money to stake and get community premium. But I really do think that if they had more money and the option was there for them to go for generation, that they'd do it.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. That's exactly what it is. There's distribution of our user base is based on AUM. So again, assets under management. It's an invert slope, meaning that there's many more people at lower AUMs, and the higher you get in the AUM, the lower the amount of people that live there, because it's just how distribution of money works. It always tends to be a wider base at the bottom, and the higher you go up, the smaller the actual frame is. So the actual metric to use here is how many people that can afford realistically each of those levels actually become that premium. That's the real metric that we look at, and that's how we determine the success of each premium. So I can tell you right now that there's, I think, 10 times more community premiums than generation premiums. But this doesn't mean that generation premiums is a failure compared to community premium. It might just be that there's 10 more times people that can afford community and cannot afford generation.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, you're spot on what you said.
And do you have anything that you want to say right now to everyone who's listening to us?
I do. Well, first of all, as I assume that we're reaching to the end now, it's genuinely always a pleasure to be able to speak with you guys directly. The questions that you ask are not necessarily always not only great, but they're actually beyond that, because they make me think as well in ways that, often when you get into something, you enter this kind of like tunnel vision, and speaking to you guys allows me to always again question myself, question how you feel, how the community sees this, and it genuinely makes me a better product manager. It generally makes us create better products, and that's why this is so valuable. So I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who gives part of their time to be here, to listen to me talk, to ask me questions, to allow me to answer them. And it's a real privilege to be here. So thank you to everybody, to the whole community. And honestly, you guys are amazing. I've never worked on a project where the community has been this awesome. And I can only reiterate that it's a general pleasure for me. So cheers. And stay tuned for 2022. It's going to be awesome. See you next time, guys. Again, big thank you from me, and see you around.
Thanks, Danny.